Good morning. So today we're at Go-Go's in Jimbaran. Bit of a basic me and a coffee avocado. Surroundings, we're on the second floor, and all together. Today, of course, we're going to be discussing part 2, final part of the Soeharto Years. So let me enjoy my food and I'll see you soon. Good morning. So today we're going to talk about the Soeharto years, 1986 to 1996, because the last couple of years I met my future wife, Isma, and it's slightly different. It would have a pattern. So in a way I'm talking about the first few years, but the pattern of my lifestyle would remain similar throughout that 10 years. And we're going to start with Simprug. Michelle and I moved to Simprug. There's my mum and my car, my Jeep. There's a wedding we went to in Simprug, some of the Korean kids that I would teach, and there's a view from outside. So this was Rawa Simprug. Rawa means swamp, but it was anything but. And of course a lot of expats didn't live in kampungs, but many of us did. It was an interesting way of living. So we got basic amenities, but it was a nice house, nicely tiled. Watch telly, on telly, there was only one station when we began, and that was TVRI. There'd be the A-Team, and there'd be, what was the other one? Little House on the Prairie. Later, there would be new stations, like RCTI, you had to get a box, and ANTV and others. And I do remember on Monday nights, Michelle and I used to get into LA Law. And then once a month, Suharto would come on the TV at 8 o'clock when the show was on, and he'd talk to the farmers, and you'd miss the program that day. So it was always disappointing when he came on TV. I was told by a friend he did it daily, but I think it was once a week and not always, but I could be wrong. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to discuss is, of course, a very important part of my life and my lifestyle, which was the Wanderers football team. I've spoken about the Wanderers before. This is the early rendition. We used to play first at Block S, and then we used to play at Chibaba with the big coconut, and then we would transfer to Polwan. Fantastic days, fantastic nights. It was part of your lifestyle. I think I said earlier, join a football team, join a cricket team. If you're an expat, wherever you're living in the world, you've got a bunch of mates. We used to, we used to drink in an area called Block M, very specific, Jalan Pelatihan. And at the time, Jalan Pelatihan, I would say, was the main drag for expats. We used to use a bar called the Sportsman. Opposite was Top Gun, where most of the oil and gas guys would go. And in fact, the first month I was in Indonesia, the owner of the Sportsman was murdered. Yeah, literally, he was murdered, knifed in the toilets. I wasn't going to the Sporty at the time, but yeah, it was bathed in blood, was the Sportsman. So as you went down Pelatihan, there were bars, there were clubs, and it was heaving on Saturdays and Friday nights. Right at the bottom was a nightclub that a lot of people don't remember, but it was very famous. It was called the Tambora, and aptly named because the Tambora was the biggest recorded volcanic explosion ever, bigger than Krakatoa. Anyway, it was a nightclub. Whoosh, boy. Sometimes, of course, we were young, but there were a lot of old guys going at 12, 1 in the morning, and sometimes you'd think, why is that lovely young girl with that bare-bellied 50-year-old? Dough! I won't go further, but yes, sometimes it was like, whoa, what's she doing with him? Well, Okay, so let's move on. Teaching, of course, was what I did, and here we have a couple of pictures. This one is with Depnaka, and this one is with Pedangkar. Beautiful Indonesian staff. My first job was with a very small company called PAB. They weren't really on the map. The big companies were ALT, SAT, EEC, EEP. There were some very, very big named schools. And my first job was with BKKBN, which is the tax people. Now, I never forget going in there the first time and the word docent is like lecture. I thought, my God, and all these, the staff, the government workers were mostly twice my age, and I don't think they really respected me to begin. But of course, through confidence and knowing what I was doing, obviously I pride myself at the work I gave. So anyway, education, going to work 5 days a week, and of course including the Koreans during the afternoon, evening. Life was bliss in that sense. Transport, there were 3 transport ways of getting around generally. The first, of course, was by taxi. The second was by bajai. Bajai is a 3-wheeled bike which is covered. And the third, my favourite, becak. Becak is like a pedicab. You barely see them in Indonesia now. They're banned in Jakarta. I remember becaks at Hotel Indonesia. I go that far back. But I think around 1994 they were totally banned in Jakarta. Generally the place to get becaks now, and the only place, is Jogja. Anyway, beautiful form of transport. It was inhumane that they would have to do this, but there was nothing inhumane about it. Anyway, bottom line is they had to go. All right, let's move on. What about lifestyle? So one of the major areas here and at the top were the societies. There were many societies, and I was a member of the Yorkshire Society, but there was the British Society, there was the St Andrews, St Patrick, St David's, and once a month you'd meet. I used to do a quiz for Yorkshire, and we prided ourselves in being the biggest of the societies. And as I showed you here, this is the yearly ball. You dress up and have a great time, tickets from BA and things like that. Just fantastic times. The other major yearly was called the Highland Gathering. And again, if I'm not wrong, the biggest Highland Gathering outside Scotland. Could be wrong, or at least outside the UK. It changed location to location. The first one I went to was at Cooningham Stadium. This is a famous year here. And as you can see, they have gliders coming down. One of them got impaled on one of the railings, believe it or not. Anyway, so lifestyle was great. You'd go to Sunday brunch, you'd do all sorts of entertaining things, entertain or be entertained. The schools would often have Friday night drinks. So a lot of socializing, and of course Brits, Dutch, Germans, you name it. And of course some Indonesians. So that side was great. I also subscribed to the Jakarta Post, so I kept myself politically aware of what Indonesia was about. It kept you on the pulse. It was a very good, in fact, I would say excellent newspaper. One thing that I could do at the time was pretty much name any cabinet minister. And there were some amazingly strange cabinet ministers. People like Joop Have, who was half Dutch, comes to mind, Ali Alatas, Harmoko, you name them, they were really some strange dudes. Not many ladies. Okay, so lifestyle was important. Also, of course, the characters. I can name a few. Graham James, who used to own EEC. the Patton brothers. If ever Netflix wanted to do life about Jakarta in the 80s, 90s, you'd follow these four Patton brothers. Unfortunately, only one is alive now. But just through their history of Jakarta, I met Kano, a major gangster, through Paul Patton. He showed me a gun. He was later assassinated with almost Paul. Of course, there are stories and stories. Okay, so that gives you a slight glimpse into the amazing life of Jakarta in the 80s and early 90s. It's not the be-all and end-all, but it gives you just some slight insight. I'm leaving the last couple because, as I said, I met Michelle, and I'll do a post-Suharto pre. But let me finish on Suharto himself. What did I think of him? Well, I never met the guy. I do believe at that time they did need a dictator. They needed somebody strong. He kept a lot of groups down, including Islam. I don't believe that the Bali bombing would have happened. I don't think Aceh would have been allowed to have Sharia law. Now, everything changed on the death of his wife, Ibu Tin, who was pretty much, in my opinion, the brains behind the Suharto clan. She was actually known as Ibu 10 because generally you wanted to do anything, you had to give a 10% cut. Neither here nor there. She died, I think, in 93 or 94. The TV was literally her face for 1 week. And that was the wife of a president, not the president. That shows how strong he was. There were rumors that she died through the hands of one of her sons who were fighting through a gunshot. I don't know whether that's true or not. But there's no doubt in my mind Soeharto started to unravel after that because he couldn't keep checks on his kids, who became very, very greedy. They wanted their hands in all pies. And when one son brought a car company, the other one did. They even competed with themselves. Bottom line is, when he's away during, I think, a NAM, they're starting to riot. And the moment guns were fired and students died, it was all over for Suharto. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll catch you again next time. By the way, don't forget, don't be a sheep.